Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to crack open what is basically the ultimate instruction manual. Not for your phone, not for some new gadget, but for your own mind. We're talking about the theory of knowledge. And look, forget everything you might imagine about dusty old philosophy classes. Think of this as a user's guide to how you think, how you believe, and how you make decisions every single day. So let's just jump right in with a really big question.
I want you to really think about this for a second. How do you actually know that the things you believe are true are, true? Is it just a gut feeling? Something you read online? Something a teacher told you years ago? This one question, this is the launch pad for our entire journey today.
And yeah, that big question, it actually has a name. Theory of knowledge, or TOK for short. Now, this isn't about memorizing a bunch of facts. It's more like a framework for thinking critically. It's about making that shift from just passively soaking up information to actively hitting the pause button and asking, hang on a second, how do I actually know that? And are my reasons for believing it any good?
Which brings us to a really cool idea. In this whole story of knowledge, you, yes, you are the main character. You're the knower. And who you are, your background, your experiences, your culture, that stuff isn't just in the background. No way. It actively shapes what you know and how you know it. Your perspective is the lens you see the entire world through. In all the knowledge you have, it pretty much falls into two big buckets. First, there's your personal knowledge. This is your stuff, your memories, your unique skills. It's that unspoken knowledge, right? Like knowing how to ride a bike. You don't think about the physics of it, you just know. And then you've got shared knowledge. This is the gigantic library that we've all built together as communities. Things like scientific theories, historical accounts, cultural traditions, all checked, validated, and passed on. And we're constantly bouncing between these two worlds. So if you're the knower, how do you actually go about building all this knowledge? Well, you're not empty-handed. You've got a toolkit. These are what we call the ways of knowing. They're the mental tools that every single one of us uses, whether we realize it or not, just to make sense of the world around us.
Let's take a look inside this toolkit. You've got things like language, what you see and hear through sense perception, pure reason, and of course, emotion. And these tools are always interacting in this kind of delicate dance. For example, we love to think of reason as this perfectly clean, logical tool, right? But how often does emotion just barge right in? A really strong feeling can make us zero in on certain pieces of information, or worse, lead us right into confirmation bias, where we only look for evidence that confirms what we already feel is true. So the big takeaway here is that these tools are incredibly powerful, but not a single one of them is perfect.
Okay, so where do we actually use these tools? Well, we use them in different arenas of knowledge. A good way to think about this is like different sports or different games, like science or history or the arts. Each arena has its own unique rulebook for what counts as a solid point or a valid piece of evidence. And this is where you can really see how the rules of the game change depending on where you're playing. In the natural sciences, you build knowledge with experiments you can repeat, with careful observation and a whole system of peer review to try and be as objective as possible. But in history, well, you can't exactly rerun World War II in a lab. There, knowledge is built by interpreting clues, analyzing sources, and understanding that different perspectives are going to tell different stories. What counts as proof in math is completely different from what counts as meaning in art. Okay, so we've got a toolkit, and we've got these different arenas to play in. So what? Why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because understanding this system isn't just some abstract school exercise. It's about becoming a responsible knower in a world that is just drowning in information, misinformation, and competing ideas. It's literally about how to navigate modern life with skill and a bit of wisdom. So how do you walk that path? It all starts by recognizing your own biases, those little mental shortcuts and cultural blind spots that, let's be honest, we all have. From there, you get better at checking your sources, asking not just, is this true, but how do they justify this claim? You start practicing perspective taking, really trying to get inside someone else's viewpoint. And finally, you act ethically because you understand that what you believe and claim to know has real-world impact. This is the practical payoff of the whole thing. You know, in the end, the goal here isn't to become some kind of walking encyclopedia who knows everything. I mean, that's impossible. The real goal is to cultivate what's called intellectual humility. It's about having the confidence to act on what you know, but also having the wisdom to recognize its limits, to admit you might be wrong, and to always, always stay open to changing your mind. It is one of the most powerful and, frankly, underrated mindsets you can ever develop.
So I'll leave you with one final question to carry with you, a kind of personal call to action that really gets to the heart of what we've been talking about. Take a look at all the things you believe to be true, really true. Now, which one of those beliefs is worth pulling out, putting on the table, and just asking yourself one more time, how do I really know that?